Have you ever been listening to the radio or your favorite song and wondered how do the vocals sound so polished and so good? Well, vocal tuning is a big part of that, and I'm going to show you what goes into it and how to tune vocals like a pro. Hey, my name is Jason. I'm a full-time audio engineer, and today we're talking about vocal tuning. I'm going to show you three things. I'm going to show you a handful of styles of vocal tuning. I'm going to show you what you need to tune vocals, and actually hands-on how to do it. My goal is to make sure that you have the knowledge and the tools that you need to make sure that your vocal performance sounds professional every time. Real quick, we're going to talk about the three main styles of vocal tuning and how it's used in the industry. So the first way is Autotune. Now, Autotune gets a little bit of a bad rap and is used more as a scapegoat for a bad performance vocally or just something that's been overtuned. The use of Autotune is more common in hip-hop or rap or just used as a specific vocal effect. I've heard it referred to a lot as a T-Pain effect. He was a guy who made it more popular. Autotune is noticed more when it is used aggressively. It doesn't have to be used aggressively though. I know a lot of people use it live on tour or in worship or for acoustic performances, just to kind of take the edge off and remove some of the distracting notes from a vocal performance. Autotune is also the easiest tuning tool to use. All you have to do is input the key of the song, the type of scale you want, and then use the note speed and the note transition to dial in the tuning the way that you want it. The faster the speed goes or the lower the number is, the more aggressive the tuning is going to sound. And the higher that number is or the lower attack and release, the more relaxed that effect will sound. The second way vocals are tuned is using manual tuning. Using software like Melodyne or Wavestune, it's easy to take full creative control over each note and each transition and each modulation of the vocal performance. Manual tuning is the most effective way to get a natural sounding pitch correction, but it also can be the most destructive way if it's used improperly. It takes a fine-tuned ear and a lot of learning to pull this off. And the third way is what I call hybrid tuning, and that's where you put a manual tuner in the first slot of your channel strip and an auto tuner underneath that in the second slot of your channel strip. This allows you to use auto tune not as aggressively and distractingly, and then use manual tune to fix the more off-putting notes that are outside of the scale. Hybrid tuning, in my opinion, is the most efficient way to get a really solid tune in a short period of time. But there are downsides. Tuning vocals is a creative process, in my opinion, and anytime you involve autotune, you kind of take the human element out of that creativity. You kind of just set the key and the speed, and it just kind of takes over. But that might not be what's best for the song or the style, or the vocal performance, or what the artist wants. So comparing hybrid and manual, I think manual definitely gives you 100% creative control over that performance and the notes and the transition of those notes, and is the best way to get a natural sounding tune. But just because manual tuning is a more natural way, doesn't mean we have to take autotune off the table at all. I use autotune all the time in recording and writing sessions. When I'm standing there with an artist who's singing, my goal is to make them feel as good as they can about the performance that they just sang. I use it just to kind of take care of the distracting notes and the slight pitch variations, just to make everyone a little more comfortable in the room, and then I'll go in and tune it manually later. But my goal is to make the artist feel as good as possible about the performance that they just gave. So that was a bit of rambling, but I'm going to show you what you're going to need to pull off all three of those different vocal tuning styles, and then I'm going to show you how to do it. So chances are you already use a recording software like Pro Tools or Logic or Ableton or Reason or Studio One, or there's a bunch of different DAWs out there. But not all softwares have tuning capabilities natively. Some have auto-tune, some have manual tune, like Logic has flex pitch, Reason has pitch edit, so most likely you're going to have to get a third-party plugin. There's a ton of softwares for this. There's Wavestune, Melodyne, Revoice, and then there's Guitar's Autotune and Wavestune Live Autotune, and there's a bunch of different options. I personally use Melodyne because for the most part, it is the industry standard for manual vocal tuning, and then I use Wavestune Live for Autotune just because a friend recommended it to me. So using both manual and Autotune, let's head over to the audio studio and I'm going to show you how to implement those three different styles of tuning. So diving right into a session, I decided to use one of my own songs. I didn't want to use a client song because I didn't want to embarrass anybody by showing raw, untuned vocals, so I decided to possibly embarrass myself. And I also picked some of the worst takes from this vocal session, just so we can show how powerful vocal tuning is. Let's listen to part of this verse to see what we're dealing with here first. No tuning, just raw vocals.
I wish I could make them fly away, the arguments that I replay, but overthinking's got me thinking again.
Okay, so there's definitely some room for improvement here. So to take off some of those distracting notes, we're gonna try out Autotune and see what it can do. We're gonna be using Waves Tune real time. All the different types of Autotune plugins have pretty much the same functionality, but I'm just gonna walk you through Waves Tune. We're gonna select the scale. We're gonna select the type of scale. This speed knob here is gonna change the speed at which it detects notes outside of the scale. And then the note transition knob kind of piggybacks off that and says, after this wrong note is detected, it's gonna take X amount of time for that note to be corrected. So the note is gonna be detected in 15 milliseconds and fixed within 120 milliseconds. I'm gonna show you the extremes here real quick.
I wish I could make them fly away, the arguments that I replay, but overthinking's got me thinking again.
So as you notice, once I started pulling down that note transition, it really showed off that artificial Autotune sound. That's just because the notes are fixed immediately after they're detected being wrong. But I'm gonna relax this Autotune a little bit and see if I can find kind of a happy medium, something that fixes the bad notes but doesn't sound too artificial.
I wish I could make them fly away, the arguments that I replay, but overthinking's got me thinking again. I wish I could make them fly away, the arguments that I replay, but overthinking's got me thinking again.
It's still fixing some of the distracting notes, but it's not sounding extremely artificial. It definitely has some artifacts and some things that I would consider not desirable, but we can't get rid of that because it's just Autotune. On that particular line, you could get away with just using Autotune. But in most cases, I don't think Autotune could work, especially if there's a bad performance. Now, I pulled this one line of the song just for this example because this is an awful performance by myself, and some notes are definitely outside of the scale. So I'm gonna turn Autotune off, we're gonna listen to this line, and then we're gonna turn Autotune on, and it's probably not gonna help.
To run away so much easier, say a word and there you go, I'm scared of stepping on your toes.
Okay, so that sounds bad, but there's definitely some notes that are outside of the key. So let's turn on Autotune again, and we're gonna listen to this back and see if it fixes anything.
To run away so much easier, say a word and there you go, I'm scared of stepping on your toes.
It definitely helps, but there's still notes that are not inside the melody line that was written. So from the Autotune's perspective, it's looking at a note that's outside of the key of the song, and it's like, am I supposed to take this up in pitch to get to the next nearest note of the key, or am I supposed to take it down to the next note? So Autotune gets a little confused, and it kind of does this like flutter thing. If I turn the speed and note transition down, you'll hear what I'm talking about.
To run away so much easier.
You can hear those little like flutters in there. And that's an extreme example because I turned the speed and transition down all the way. But even if I slow the speed and transition back up, Autotune is still confused and is making those flutter changes just at a slower rate. Another case where Autotune doesn't work properly is when notes glide from one to another. Autotune's just like, what is happening? Because you're technically hitting all these notes in between those two notes, and Autotune just doesn't know what to do. Let's listen to an example. So here's a glide untuned.
I'm sick of overdosing
Yeah, that glide. Let's hear it with Autotune.
I'm sick of overdosing.
So it just kind of skips that glide and just goes off, because it's like all these notes in the middle don't matter. I just need to go down. So it cuts that transition out. So that's another example of where Autotune won't work. So Autotune leaves artifacts, and it has a hard time interpreting. Dude, that does not sound right. Autotune has a hard time interpreting. What was I doing wrong? Autotune has a hard time understanding what goes into a vocal performance and what was intended. so it makes the wrong decisions. I don't even know where I'm at in this video. So next we're going to talk about manual tuning. So I'm going to load up Melodyne, which is my manual tuning software of choice. So here in the top left, I'm going to click transfer, and then I'm going to click play, and then vocals will transfer into the plugin. Now, what are we looking at here? This is kind of weird stuff. We got blobs, we got lines, we got weird stuff. So all these little blobs represent a note that was sung, and then these horizontal white and gray lines represent the true note. And we can see what note they're representing here on the left with a vertical piano roll. So as an example, this note right here, we can see it's a B, and we can see it's flat because it's not centered with the B. So these orange/red blobs represent the average pitch of that particular note that was being sung, and then this dark red line here represents the pitch modulation within that note. So this selected blob here is just the average of this modulation right here. So we can see all these notes and we know what pitch they are, but how do we actually fix them and make them better? There's a whole set of tools up here in the top that's gonna help us out. There's also some correction pitch macros, which is kind of like an auto pitch correction within the manual pitch correction plugin. So we can select all the notes, we can go to this pitch correction macro and just turn up pitch center. And that's gonna automatically move all the notes to the nearest pitch center. Again, that can work in workflows. I know a lot of people who do that. I personally like to just take the time and touch every note and make sure that it's natural like the performer intended it to be. So now we know what the actual blobs and the lines mean. I printed that one line that sounded really bad earlier, just so we can tune an extreme example. So let's play it back and watch the blobs and kind of see what's happening. Again, this is still untuned.
To run away is so much easier. Say a word and there you go. I'm scared of stepping on your toes.
That sounds so bad. Let's start with this ending section. What I usually do is play it back and fix the worst notes first and just kind of like slowly start to make it better all the way throughout.
Oh, I'm scared of stepping on your toes.
Scared is flat.
Scared.
That sounds about right to me.
Yeah. Oh, I'm scared of stepping on your toes.
On is flat as well.
Oh, I'm scared of stepping on your toes.
Toes is flat here as well.
Oh, I'm scared of stepping on your toes.
So that's already so much better. So just by clicking and dragging a few notes to be closer to the pitch center, we're already fixing it very drastically. I'm gonna start from the beginning of this phrase and see if we can fix some of those like super noticeably bad notes.
To run away is so much easier.
There's already a lot to fix here. There's already gonna be some problems, I feel. Here in this first note, we can hear it modulated sharp to flat, back to sharp again.
To run, ooh.
That's just a bad vocal performance. And if we were in a vocal session, I would say, let's try that again. But this is what we have to deal with. There's a few tools that can help us to average that modulation out. If we go to our pitch tool tab and click and hold, we can have our pitch tool, we have our pitch modulation tool, and our pitch drift tool. Let's select the pitch drift tool. That's gonna average out the note modulation within the selected note. So this note goes from sharp to flat to sharp. If we use our pitch drift tool on it, it averages out our modulation. So here's that note before the pitch drift.
To run away.
We're gonna put the pitch drift on it.
To run away so much.
And that's after. Now there's another tool in this menu called the pitch modulation tool. This one is much more heavy-handed and it will just take all the modulation, take all the human out of it and flatten it. You can see it flattens all the modulation down to just a perfect note. I'm gonna do that to this note here too.
To run away so much.
So that's extremely mechanical and extremely like repulsive. And like I said earlier, if manual tuning is used improperly, it's gonna sound even less natural than Autotune. Anyway, that pitch modulation tool is pretty heavy-handed and I hardly ever use it. I'm gonna switch back to the selection tool and start fixing some of these off notes here.
To run away so much easier. To run away so much easier.
There's a lot of issues to fix in this phrase, but one big issue that I hear is on this easier line.
So much easier.
I did not intend for there to be 3 notes there. We can see with this pitch modulation line, it goes up to C sharp, then it goes to C, and then it goes back down to B. I just wanted that to be B, C sharp, B. Now, why isn't the blob on C? Well, Melodyne isn't perfect, and it doesn't always detect pitch modulations or little riffs, runs like that. It doesn't always detect those super well. So we're gonna use our note separation tool here to cut this section up into all the notes that were actually sung. So I can see this note here was hit, so I'm gonna cut this right here. Now we have control over the C, and then it looks like I went up to a B right here, so I'm gonna cut the blob right there. So now it goes B, C sharp, C, B. So it's still not fixed, but at least I have control over those blobs and over those notes. So I'm gonna move this up to the C sharp.
So much easier.
So that's one more issue fixed. Let's start again from the beginning of that line.
Run away, so much easier.
I'm just gonna keep going through here. I can see here's another issue. It goes from G sharp to A. I'm gonna use my note separation tool again. Make some edits here. There's also another issue right here. It goes down to a D sharp. That should be an E, so I'm gonna use my note separation tool again. Drag that guy up to an E. Let's listen to that section.
Run away, so much easier.
Much sounds a little flat to me, so I'm gonna bring that guy up. Maybe use the pitch drift tool to equal him out a little bit. Maybe even cut it. Drag this guy down. I might try that.
So much easier.
I feel like I'm kind of all over the place, but this is reality and how I usually tune. I just listen to it over and over again, and as I hear problems, I fix those.
To run away, so much easier.
I can hear that flat, sharp, flat modulation. Let's try to fix that with our pitch drift tool.
To run away, so much easier.
This first note is still bothering me a little bit. I feel like it goes sharp at the end. And I guess we can kind of see that here. It kind of goes sharp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo the pitch drift that we did earlier. And I'm going to separate this into 3 notes. And then I'm going to fix those 3 notes, drag those into that pitch center, which is A. Now we have all these little weird artifacts.
To run, ooh.
And I'm going to smooth those artifacts out with this little transition knob here. We can smooth those artifacts out a little bit.
To run away, so much.
That's a lot smoother to me. This one is a little sharp here at the beginning. I'm gonna do the same thing, cut that note, then use that fade tool there. Maybe fix that with some pitch drift. Lock this guy in.
To run away, so much easier.
This one bothers me a little bit, starts sharp, so I'm gonna pull him down. Now that I'm doing it and trying to talk through it, I feel like I do cut notes a lot that modulate within. I just end up using the pitch separation tool to cut the note into several pieces where that modulation happened, and then correct that modulation manually instead of using the pitch drift or the pitch modulation tool.
To run away, so much easier.
That first half, I really like how it sounds. I'm gonna speed run through the second half and we're gonna listen to it.
To run away, so much easier. Say a word and there you go. I'm scared of stepping on your toes.
So we already know how to do hybrid tuning. We got manual tuning first. We're gonna throw Autotune on right after that with the key of the song, the scale, and we're just gonna dial it in.
To run away, so much easier. Say a word and there you go. I'm scared of stepping on your toes.
The Autotune actually works because it's not trying to put notes in the key of the song because it's already done. We already tuned it manually. It's just kind of adding this robotic, automatic effect to it. And we can get as crazy as we want. We'll crank it all the way down.
To run away, so much easier. Say a word and there you go. I'm scared of stepping on your toes.
Regardless if you like that Autotune sound or not Autotune sound, it does work. It's in tune, it's in pitch, and it has that fluttery auto-tune effect to it that we're so used to hearing in pop music. But in my opinion, manual tuning is a non-negotiable, because the auto-tune without the manual tuning, it just doesn't really work, because auto-tune just isn't smart enough. So I really did rush through this, but let's listen to it raw, auto-tune, and manual tune and compare them all together and see what the difference is.
To run away so much easier. Say a word and there you go. I'm scared of stepping on your toes. To run away so much easier. Say a word and there you go. I'm scared of stepping on your toes. To run away so much easier. Say a word and there you go. I'm scared of stepping on your toes.
So auto-tune is easy, manual tune is necessary, and hybrid tuning is a cool effect if that's what you like. So now you know what type of tuning methods are used by the pros, you know what kind of equipment you're gonna need to carry it out, and you know how to actually go and do it on your song, on your vocal performance. If you like this style of video, definitely stick around because we're just getting started here and I'm so excited about videos that are coming out in the future. My goal is to add as much value to you as I possibly can, and I want to interact with you guys as much as I can too. So definitely join the community if you feel like it. I want to get to know you and I want to talk to you, so feel free to comment below or hit me up on Instagram. The links to all my socials are in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I know this one's up to you, but I hope to see you in the next one.